Hi, Chris here at PT120. It's been a couple of weeks since last video. Little update on Camelot. If you're new to this channel and you're not sure, or actually me and may well have been subscribed to the channel for a while but not realised there was a club magazine, this is the TT120 club magazine. Now, one of four hard copies. They did the winter, the autumn, winter, spring, and summer. When we were paying for membership to the club, this is spring 2023, which I think equates to July in Margate. Right, so the autumn one has just come out at the end of November. All right, and the reason why I'm looking back at this one is because I thought something I want to show to people who maybe don't know about the club. But the club is now free. It's not £15 to join anymore. But from now onwards, I think magazines are always in PDF format. Okay, but a little something else that's free that I thought I'd show you that's in this one is the Scale Scene downloadable kit. Now, there's a series of instructions in here. I've printed them off from the PDF version because I think it's just easier for me to have it like that rather than trying to fold the pages over. There's a web address to go to get your downloaded kit, which you only get if you join the Hornby TT120 club. Except there are other free ones, and that is there's the small goods store here. There's the inspection pit, which you've seen in Camelot. There's the Weybridge coal office. It's a neat little office that's either you can be used as a coal office or a Weybridge. I think it might come with some stays, some coal stays as well. I think, and also a little Weybridge platform, so you can choose either or to go with the office. And then a low relief warehouse, which fits in very well actually with this this small warehouse, which we're about to get into making today. Now, some of you may or may not be aware of Scale Scenes. Some of you, depending on how old you are, you may be familiar with Super Quick, which certainly were around when I was a lad. A lot of the layouts that my father made for me had the Super Quick stuff on them, and they're good. They're a good kit. And then there's Metcalfe as well, which I'm not sure what's newer, Metcalfe or Scale Scenes, but Metcalfe are another printed kit form where you buy the kit pre-cut on its correct card. Scale Scenes isn't quite like that. Ours is a little bit different. Scale Scenes is one where you pay for the artwork to download the artwork and put it in the folder in your computer. Don't worry if you lose it. You can contact Scale Scenes and they will sort you out for another copy if they've got a record of you buying it. Very good like that. And you print that off either onto paper, photo paper. I personally use a photo matte adhesive label. I've been through quite a few, and here's the one I use. Now the reason why I use this one is the adhesive is very strong and actually goes hard. So you don't get any playtime with it. You're on, you're off, and I'll give you an example of that in a minute. But it works very well. I made a test piece out of. I did two of these. I made one in using the adhesive backed label paper, matte one. I used another one where it was just normal photo paper using Pritt stick, and then I put them in an outbuilding for 6 months. This was back in January, so it had kind of like the winter and the summer. The one that survived was the one with the adhesive backed paper. It did much better. Now, I don't know how much that you can attribute to the fact that I sprayed it as well with lacquer, or both sprayed with lacquer, but certainly this one did better. So I've continued down that road and they work fine for me. Some people say, well, what's better? Well, I don't know. Do you need to know who's better? There are differences between the three types, between Super Quick, Metcalfe, and Scale Scenes. To summarise them loosely speaking, I would say the Super Quick was probably the quickest to make. Clues in the name. Now the Super Quick ones, they're simplified. They're certainly simpler than a Metcalf kit. A lot of the detail that you might build in a Metcalf kit, you on a Scale Scenes kit will be printed onto the surface. Okay, so they're a very good, quick space filler, and of course you can do a lot of scratch build stuff to them to actually raise them up a little bit in detail levels. But yeah, that's where Super Quick is. Good. I think they're very good. They're a very good starter one, and yeah, they make a good kit. I think they're very good instructions as well. Then you've got your Metcalf, which I think is um, um, they're an outstanding kit, especially if you don't want to go down the route of buying card and cutting it yourself, and you just want something that's pretty much pretty well thought through as a good sturdy kit that's going to last a long time on your layout. Top quality. Uh, they are possibly I think they're the more expensive out of all of them. That's one thing. Okay, to consider, especially if you're going to build, if you want street upon street upon street of terraced houses. Have one church. At the end of the day, is it? But if you want 100 houses, then that might be something you might want to consider the actual cost. The other thing about them is the artwork is very much, I think it's, in comparison to Scale Scenes artwork, it's simpler, okay? It's generic and simpler, and you invariably only get one style of brickwork. The church comes in one style of brick. They do, there are a number of Metcalf kits where you have a red or a grey version, which is good, and more than enough for most people. Then you get your Scale Scenes. Now your Scale Scenes, I would say, you need to be in. You don't need to. Anyone can just jump in and crack on with them, and you should just jump in and crack on with them. But you'll probably find that you need a bit more practice to get to the level that you may want out of a Scale Scenes kit. And also understanding some of the instructions. Every now and then there's a little bit where you go, well, it didn't tell me to do that, because it's actually just assuming that you've worked it out yourself a bit. I think in the small station, it gives you clear instructions where to put the bench in the hut. There's nothing about where the bench goes in the actual office. But then if you actually look inside the office, it says, there's a little bit of text that says bench support goes here. So you can work it out from that, obviously, but there's not something spoon fed for you in the instructions. That is not a complaint. It's just something that some people say, oh, I don't know, I struggle with the Scale Scenes instructions. Well, I don't struggle with the Scale Scenes instructions, but you sometimes have to really focus and pay attention to what you're doing. Read the question 3 times before answering. Right, so then the other really positive thing there's a couple of positive things, a number of positive things about the Scale Scenes is that the artwork is more fine. It's a finer finish. It's near photo finish, I think, in some instances. The brickwork, I think, is much more varied. I can tell from across a church hall which brick wall at the background is a Scale Scenes brick wall and which one's a Metcalf brick wall. When you put them side by side, the Scale Scenes finish, if built correctly, I think does look better than the Metcalf one. The struggle is that the Metcalf one is easier to build correctly than the Scale Scenes one. The Scale Scenes one needs a bit more scratch building skills. Not rocket science though, but they do to make them look as good as the Metcalf can come out. They need to be a bit more attention has to be put into them. The end result can be better, only in my opinion. Okay, I love Metcalf. This N-Gage church is going to go on a background on a hill, slightly forced perspective. I think the N-Gage stuff is perfect for that, and I think some people have already used the N-Gage. Some of the N-Gage sheds have been big enough to just rise up on a little brick plinth to make them big enough for TT120. It doesn't quite work for me. I think the scale is a little bit too far out, but using one as a background piece, I think a Metcalfe's Engage is perfect. Right? That's one of the other positives about scale scenes, is that you can produce these in the correct 1:120 scale. Right? And that is by, and I'll if you go to, when you go to download your kit, you want to print your kit off. If you go down to your options, I buy my paper in A4, I guillotine it in half, so I've got A5, because the TT120 scale, when you scale the scale scenes down by 63%, or reduce it by 63%, it fits an A5 perfectly, and then you get 2 prints out of them. So you get your scale actually how you want it, bang on, and invariably most of these come up with at least 2 options. And a lot of them come with, I don't know, sort of 3, 4 or more brick. So there's some of the buildings will come in a new brick, an old brick, a red brick, a dark red brick, and there's a yellowy brick, and then there's a grey stone, and then there's a corbels, and there's, I think the church has 3. A rough rubble, a cut rubble, and then a flint. So the scale scenes ones, the range is wider. They've got a bigger range than I think anyone else, I believe, especially if you count in the fact that most of these things can be done in, like, a lot of them can be done in multiple different finishes. They've got a much bigger range of houses to play with. And they do an excellent scratch builder yard. Okay, well, I think that's enough sunshine being blown up the back of scale scenes. And of course, once you've bought them, you can print them again and 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 again. So you can print them again and again. You can get them exactly the right scale, and the quality of the actual finish is the highest standard of the 3. Only downside is they are more difficult to make. All right, but they're not impossible. An old soldier like me can get on with it and cut them up and glue them together. Then I'm sure lots and lots of you, with especially the younger ones who've got better eyesight and less shaky hands, will do a much better job. But I think perhaps we should stop rattling on and get on with building one of them. Okay, see you on the other side. So we print off the instructions and a set of the artwork on adhesive back paper, and we've got these outdoor walls, the platform, floor, roof, base layers. I'll talk about those in a moment. Another base layer and some internal walls, and more parts of the platform. There you go. Okay, so there's a key. There's a key that will help you inform you of what some of this information is on these cards. But here we have a medium card. That means stick this stuff to the left of that dotted line on medium, and on the right hand side you can see there's print only. So the stuff at the top there needs to be cut off, because that will be stuck directly onto a model. Okay, and these pieces, a lot of the base stuff is heavy card. Now, exactly what constitute medium, thin, and heavy? Well, they've given you a little rough guide here, and this is for TT120. So this is approximately 110 for light card, GSM that is, and then a 0.5mm thick for medium, and a 125 for thick card. Except it's not always possible to get exactly these measurements, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So the materials that I normally work with, I've got a 0.1mm clear plastic for windows. It's actually for laser printing, and I've only got an inkjet, so I don't print on it, unfortunately. Then I've got a thin just under 0.3 most of the time. Obviously these things vary. My medium, 0.45 to 0.46. And then my heavy is possibly a little bit too heavy, and it's 1.34 to 1.38. So it's sometimes a little bit too thick, but we've got cunning ways of dealing with that. So the stuff that I use, obviously there's a link in the description below, which is a good way of supporting the channel. Rocket card glue, it's quick and it's strong. What's not to like? Swan Morton scalpel handle with 10A and 11 blades. I prefer to use Winsor & Newton watercolour paints. for doing my edges rather than a felt tip pen, just personal preference. And obviously we do need a sharp steel rule and a good cutting mat. There you go, that's what I'm working on. And when I print off the work, first of all, I use a pastel fixative from Frisk, which is nice and light, but I use a varnish matte from Frisk, which is UV Protect, once I finish the build. First instructions is to spray the freshly printed papers and then mount them. I don't actually do the mounting at this point myself. Next operation, with a sharp blade, carefully cut out the window openings on the windows. Overlay, apply a very thin, even coat of glue to the back of each of the overlays and very carefully position them over a sheet of clear film. Now, obviously I don't apply the glue because I'm using self-adhesive, and I'm going to cut one out and show you a bit of a problem you have with this scale and the small window frames. And I've got to say, I think scale seems to have sort of thrown everyone in a little bit in the deep end, because this is the most difficult bit to make look really nice, in my opinion. Right, let's cut one of them out, and then we'll speed this up as we hand cut these. Now, the issue with cutting thin paper with a scalpel blade like this is that however hard you try to be as careful, and I took about 20 odd minutes doing this, although I'm going to speed up in a second, the bars are so narrow, they get moved around. So when you go back in, they get really kind of cut up and torn up. And here you go. Maybe slightly exaggerated, but you can see it's as rough as a badger's backside. Now, this is with it stuck on some plastic. Now, I've got a little plan for doing this. Now, obviously, the best way is actually printing them using a laser jet onto the film. I don't have a laser jet, I've got an inkjet, so that doesn't work. What do I do to improve this? Well, first of all, swap your blade out. Get rid of your 10A, which is good for cutting straight cuts through thick paper, and use instead an 11. Now, this is a little bit more flex and wobbly, but it is thin, and you can go more vertically with it, which means you get less blade overrun at the end of your cut, which is very important when you're cutting really small things. And the other thing I do is support it by sticking it down to this 0.1 mil film, and that way it supports the paper as you cut it. But it's very important that you rub down as hard as you can and squeeze all the air out so that you've got the best adhesion. You'll know you've got good adhesion when you turn it over and you can see the silvery bit at the top there? That's where it's not quite as adhered, and the rest of it's nice and solid white. So go back over, give it another good rub. Okay, now let's cut these. Now, when you go back over the plastic cuts actually very easily. And then on the other side, you can see it. And there you go. Boom. I know, slightly speeded up. But I get a much crisper, cleaner edge. And now I go back in with a little bit of blue paint, tidy all this up, and get rid of all the white edges. It also cleans up the fluff. And I've got now a much more stable frame, and it looks nice and clean and tidy. And all we really need to do now is glue this. I cut them out and then glue them onto some more plastic. Now, for this, use a little bit of capillary action. Make sure everything's covered in glue. Pick it up from there and then put it on a fresh place. And then sit aside till it dries. And there you go. Done. Okay, third operation. Right, so we glued the corresponding sidewall A and sidewall B base layers together into 2 blocks of 2. So we've got 4 pieces of printout which we need to stick onto some heavy card. Remember, it's supposed to be 1.25 mil thick. Remember, my stuff's 1.38. So we are going to have a little bit of an issue. So I'm going to show you. So we stick it down and then cut everything out, and then I'm going to show you what the issue is. Now, you might be wondering, why have we got double? That's because you've got an inner and an outer, almost representing like a two-course brickwork. And they scale seem to do some clever stuff with this. Now, if you join these two, or let's say, for example, these 2 pieces, let's put them together and measure them. Remember, we're aiming for 2.5 mil,
This means that will work for all the wraparounds, and I've got 3.10, which means wraparounds won't reach. So what are you going to do? Well, my other card, like I said, is I think 0.45. So if I take my original thick board, this particular piece is showing 1.36, and then I get a couple of my skinny pieces either side of it, I've now got a measurement much closer to what I'm aiming for. Where's my, here they come, 2.45 for 48, 47, perfect. That's much closer. So that's what I'm going to aim for. Now, this actually is another benefit to this, because when you cut two really thick pieces, it's really hard to get them absolutely square, and quite often you'll get an angle on them. If you see here, this starts perpetuating itself when you start loading double thick pieces together. Now, so what we've done instead is I get one thick piece, stick it down on a thin piece, trim it, stick it down to another thin piece, trim that side, and I get a much squarer item. If you see the edges, it's just how I do it. I prefer laminating up like this. And you'll see that it's an easy thing to trim round. There's a piece I've stuck earlier. Get back with your scalpel. Back to a 10A, because it's not floppy like the 11. Always do more cuts, 2 or 3 cuts. Don't try and cut it in one slice, and you'll get a nice, super neat cut, which I shall show you in a moment. Tum-ty-tum-ty-tum. Here we go. And the edge you'll see at the end of this is super sharp. Here we go, get rid of the rubbish. Come on, Chris. Into camera, get to focus. Right, so I've got now a much sharper edge to it. Okay, so on to wrapping the sides. Now, obviously, I don't need these extra pieces, so they're off to the scrap pile. It says wrap and glue the sidewall A and sidewall B cover layers, turn it tightly around them. But because I've got one layer now rather than two, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to just wrap onto it. Now, the reason why you have to is because you have this downpipe trick, which is something, a detail, which is a nice idea, that you put down one edge, and it's supposed to look like a downpipe. Now, I've already made this kit before, and I must admit I wasn't overly keen on it, so I'm ignoring that, and I'm going to put a thin piece of black round pipe down there to represent that. So let's crack on with the wrapping. No real trick to it, just making sure it's always nicely pressed down. I like doing it this way so you get that kind of double brick edge. I think that is an edge, especially if it's done sharply like this. It's much easier to hide when you put the whole thing together. Only my opinion. And like I said, I'm not really strictly following the instructions completely to the letter at this point. Now, the next thing I want to show you is an issue you can have using this sub-adhesive label paper. It's a one-hit job. As you can see, the white edge there, where I've mislaid it, it bonds so well that you can see that it's torn through the top layers of the fibre. So the fibres of the paper are weaker than the bond between the glue of the printed sheet and the cardboard. So this is what I do when it comes to actually trying to stick something that's a more complicated shape that you really want to get spot on and you can only do first time. Okay, this is how I go about it. I think this is possibly the last hint and tip of the whole project. After this, things will just get speeded up, so you don't have to worry about me doing it blow by blow. Right, so the first thing I do, get everything square, then get to one corner with a scalpel, preferably one of the little lower flaps that wraps around, and peel that back without making sure everything's staying exactly where it's supposed to be. Gently cut through that backing paper, lay that now adhesive free area down so it bonds. You can then peel this bit back, remove the backing paper, then very carefully lay that down, and it's exactly where you want it to be. Okay, and then you can then just see absolutely perfectly in position. And now we can do quick rub over the back, make sure everything's bonded properly, and now we can fold the edges. Now remember, this is not exactly as per the instructions. This is me kind of winging it, and why not? I bought the kit, I can make it how I like. So I trim off all the areas and then immaculately position that so that everything's spot on. Clean up the little edges with the watercolour, and then let's crack on with the front and rear. Now again, we have the same issue with that thick panel. We have one thing that we've got to sort out here, and that's where the windows go. Now the windows are supposed, on the proper instructions, the windows go in between the two layers of 1.25 mm. I can't do that with this, so I just put mine on the back and cover them in position with the internal cover layer. Works for me. Okay, back with the program. Operation 12. Place the front, side and rear door fronts print side down. Remember, they're bonded to cardboard, medium cardboard, and then squarely glue the corresponding door backs into position once you've cut them out, as we're doing here. Boom, boom, boom. And there you go. Everything done. On to stage 13.
Well, thank you for getting this far in the video. I know it's a little bit of a long one. Never really quite sure whether or not we should be flying through and showing you the end result, or doing it blow by blow. So I'm trying to get a balance in between. Um, Hopefully, there's some nice little bits there that'll be helpful for you. Perhaps prove that um, downloadable card kits aren't quite the dark art that some people might think they are. Now, talking about help with card kits, a great place to go is the Scale Scenes Facebook page. I think the admin is actually John himself, and I think there's a lot of people on there who are just starting out, are asking for help. They might be asking the same questions as you, but there's also a lot of people there who are well experienced, showing off what can be achieved with Scale Scenes to a higher standard than mine. Not that that should sound surprising, but anyway, the channel. As I said, thank you so much for getting this far. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. It's free. The YouTube algorithms love people subscribing. They also love people liking, pressing the thumb thingy. They also like a good old comment. Actually, I like a comment and a bit of a chat. I'd love to get engaged with you guys and talk about what you're up to and what we're doing, and whatever, model railways in general. So don't forget to please like and subscribe. Ring the little bell, that tells you when one of my videos is popping up. And then there's should be a couple of videos here and here if Jimmy sorts that out. And I'll take care and I'll see you soon. Cheers.